What's up? I'm right now Ramsey, and today we start a journey exploring an opening repertoire for 1E4, in which we analyze master games for each variation. In today's game, we will be looking at the game between Hans Niemann and Ivanchuk at the Tournament of Peace in 2023, in which Ivanchuk plays the Petrov Defense. Was Hans Niemann able to take down the legendary Ivanchuk facing off against the Petrov Defense? Stick around as we break it all down and uncover lessons that we can apply to our own game. Before we get started, I think it'd be a good idea to explain exactly what the Petrov Defense is. The Petrov Defense was made popular by a guy named Alexander Petrov, a Russian chess player from the mid 1800s. The idea of the opening is to put early pressure on the center while maintaining a symmetrical pawn structure. The opening repertoire that I'm using for this video series is Keep It Simple 1E4 2.0 by Krzysztof Sielecki on Chessable. If you're looking to learn 1E4, I recommend that you check it out. I'll leave a link in the description below. My current rating is 1367, and I've found it very challenging, but very helpful in learning this opening. Challenging in the sense that I come from a very simple repertoire, maybe I think 7 or 8 moves, maybe 9. And this repertoire, a lot of the variations go up to like 15 moves. So slightly more advanced than what I'm used to, but I like the challenge and I found it very helpful so far. All right, so let's go ahead and get started here. The position we see here on the board is what it looked like after move 2, and this is what is classified the Petrov's defense. Looking at this position, we can see that this knight is attacking an unprotected pawn. This knight here is attacking an unprotected pawn, and the position is symmetrical. So the next move here, knight takes, and instead of this knight taking, he simply plays d6. Well, what would happen if he did take this knight here? If he did take this knight, you could play something like Queen e2, putting pressure on this knight. And if the knight decides to fall back, say something like this, you simply win the queen with something like this. So he just plays d6, and instead of anything spectacular here, the knight falls back, and now black gets his turn and taking the pawn. So instead of following suit and playing something like d3, kicking this knight out, we play d4, looking to gain space here. Black brings his pawn up, protecting the knight, and also getting his pawn further out here in the center. And white simply develops the bishop, putting pressure on the knight, and also making it possible for white to castle. So black goes ahead and develops the other knight to c6, and white castles. And we see here black's just developing pieces, probably looking to castle in the near future as well. And white brings the knight out, adding some more pressure to this knight. And instead of dealing with all this pressure, black goes ahead and takes the knight here. And white takes back with the bishop. And then brings the bishop out, pinning this knight to the queen here. So I know my instinct would be to want to push this bishop away, but if we notice here, this pawn is unprotected right now, so we should probably take care of that first. We go ahead and just play c3, protecting this pawn, but also making it so that black's unable to bring the knight over here. So black just goes ahead and castles here, and now we put pressure on this bishop. The bishop falls back, and as I'm speaking of my instincts, my next instinct, maybe not so much now, but definitely in the past, would be to play g4. But the opening repertoire simply just says g3. gaining a little space here on the king side. Black brings the queen out, and you can see here that the queen is attacking an unprotected pawn over here on h3. So we just simply play king g2. And this right here is where the opening variation ends in the course. So after this is nothing you will actually see in the course. So black goes ahead and brings the bishop over here. Looks like he's wanting to trade bishops. The engine doesn't recommend that white trades bishops at this point, but recommends moves like bishop f4, queen c2, queen b1. So Niemann goes ahead and plays bishop f4, putting his bishop in a nice spot with an attack on this pawn and just taking space over here on the king side. Black takes the bishop, white takes back with the queen, and if you notice here, I mean, white has 3 pieces ready to just get involved in this attack on the king side. So right here, it looks like black's not a very big fan of this bishop and wants to trade the other bishop as well. And instead of taking this bishop, white finds the move knight g5. And this move right here is threatening checkmate over on h7. So this means that black has to do something immediately about this. And he plays pawn g6, which chess.com says is a great move, or better yet, the engine on chess.com. So at this point, white goes ahead and takes the bishop here. Black takes back with the queen. And now white goes to this nice open file with the rook. But not open for long because black decides to immediately challenge him over here. And white just decides that he's going to start pushing this pawn over here. Maybe try to break something up over here, protecting the king. And now black is looking to get this knight involved in the game. This knight's not really doing anything over here. Nothing really to be done. So he decides to start making his way over here towards the king side, maybe to help protect. And white just continues to push the pawn. If black is to take this pawn, there's just a checkmate right here. So definitely not a good move. And now black brings his knight over to attack this knight. And white's not looking to get rid of this knight, so he simply falls back. And now black pushes the pawn to c6. At this point, it was okay to go ahead and take this pawn. Nothing really happening. There's no threat of checkmate at this point, so it was safe to take, but instead he just decides to strengthen this pawn here. And now white brings his rook over here. So if black were to take the pawn, he could simply take right back. And if he takes, then there's just a rook over here, ready to get involved in the action. And he just goes ahead and pushes the pawn to g5 at this point, when the better move would have been to bring the knight back here. The knight back here is pretty nice. It adds a layer of protection for this king, plus adds an attack to this pawn here. White plays knight e5. This is a really well placed knight, and black just closes it up over here so that there's nothing really more happening with this pawn, but it is putting pressure on a key square here. Then white brings his queen, gets his queen even closer to the attack here. And the knight finally goes to the square that was recommended a few moves ago. putting pressure on this queen. But the queen just comes over here to d7, offering a queen trade. And Ivanchuk at this point decides to go ahead and take it. White takes back, and it looks like this rook is trapped and it's probably going to get taken by this knight, but there is a nice move to prevent that, and Ivanchuk plays rook takes e1 so that this rook has moved room to move. And instead of taking back right away, knight comes over here, great move, puts the king in check. King has to move, and it's really a very nice square if you see that all the spots that this knight is covering now. So the king moves, and now Niemann takes. And if you see this rook, it's on the open file here, and then all these squares that this knight is hitting. I mean, that's a really good knight. Versus looking at Niemann's king, and there's really no threats at this point. So the knight just comes over here to e6, blocking up this file. But no problem. The rook comes up to e5. And Ivanchuk is probably thinking that there's not really much he can do over here on this king side. So he's looking to make a play over here on the queen side. But then Niemann finds this move here, attacking this pawn, but also protecting the rook. King comes up to protect the pawn, and now Niemann's thinking that he wants to put more pressure on that pawn, so brings the rook over with the hopes of bringing it up. King slides out of the way while still protecting so that the rook can come over to help protect. All right, and now he's got two attackers on this pawn. And now there's two defenders, so not a whole lot happening there anymore. And now Niemann decides to make a move over here on the queen side. Plays a4. The engine would have liked a3, but after looking at it for a little bit, I couldn't figure out exactly why one was better than the other. So if you happen to know why a3 was better than a4, please mention why in the comments so that I can finally understand, and anybody watching who doesn't understand can also understand. So he plays a4, and Ivanchuk simply plays b6. Should have played c5. Niemann decides to start making another attack here on the king side. Pawn takes. Pawn takes. And now Ivanchuk brings the rook over. Just gives up on this pawn. I guess he finds no hope in protecting it because he knows that White's going to start chewing up these pawns over here. And it kind of makes sense now why he might have played this. If this pawn moves, he could take. He's really making it hard for Ivanchuk to push these pawns. So he pushes this pawn here, kicking the knight away. Knight goes to g5, and now he simply takes this free pawn over here. Knight comes over here to e4. You would think that Niemann would like to get his rook over here maybe. So he just plays a move here, bringing his king closer to the action. Rook comes up. King's moving in closer. And now the knight just falls back. You got to think that he'd probably want to land on this square. And now Niemann brings his rook to that square. And you got to think there's a significant attack over here. He's got two pawns to one, a knight, and this king is really just in the middle of nowhere. So at this point in the game, the engine says that white has a 5 advantage. So you gotta imagine that it's probably gonna be ending here soon. So he brings the knight over, and Niemann starts with a check. King moves, and after this move, Ivanchuk resigns. Um, Niemann's got a significant advantage here, and if you look at the time, it's not really shown on there, but Ivanchuk has an hour and 9 minutes left, and Niemann has 31 minutes. So it seemed that Niemann used his time a little bit better and played against this Petrov defense very well. So this is the first of the videos I'm going to do on this E4 opening. I figure I'm killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm analyzing games and also learning an opening. Attaching an opening variation with a game that I know is a significant advantage for me in trying to learn the game. So I figured this would be helpful, and if anybody else out there is trying to learn E4 as well, I believe you'll probably also find this profitable. But I appreciate you tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you for the next video. Thank you.